Hello, welcome back to Gary Keep It Simple. Had a request, made a video. This is it. Here we go. Got a few bucks. Want to get into cassettes? They are cool. Start here. A guide to nearly all you need to think about to get into and enjoy cassette tapes and cassette players and recorders. This video is going to be covered in sections. Look for the bit you need, or you can just play it through. It's going to be in chapters. If you look in the, and it's down on the bottom where the little spot moves. Gary Keep It Simple is the name. Keeping it simple is the aim. If you want, you can ask in the comments and anything mysterious will be clarified. Comments help me and others. Chapter 1. What do you want to do with your cassettes? If all you want to do is copy a couple of precious but not professional recordings from a tape to your PC, recordings of family, friends, college notes, that sort of thing, with no intention of ever listening to cassettes again, you only need to get something like this. I did a video on digitalisation, and this sort of thing will play a tape and you can digitalise from it. It will never be particularly hi-fi. It will be adequate for what you want to do, if that's what you want to do with it. Thing is, with people like Amazon, you can buy it, try it, if it's no good, send it back. Now, the one that you see in the picture here, which is on the American Amazon site, costs around $20. I think it was $19.99. It'll do the job. It's not hi-fi, but it's cheap and cheerful. You can pay more, but I don't know if it's the expensive ones are any better. They all look the same, so they may be exactly the same. I don't know. I personally wouldn't bother with one, but you know, they are there. People do say they're okay for what they do. I leave no opinion other than to say it's cheap. It's cheap and cheerful. It will probably do what you want it to do. On the other hand, getting one of these may be a false economy, but you may enjoy cassettes and wish you went for a better one to start with. This is the thing. You might find that you actually enjoy using cassettes, in which case maybe you should have spent a little bit more money in the first place and not have to buy twice. On the other hand, if you've already got the cheap thing, maybe the good thing will make it sound better, and you can always put the two together and come up with something in between. Chapter 2. You want to enjoy hi-fi recordings, recorded at home, or stuff that cannot be replaced. They were recorded with care and should sound good. You need something better. You need something like this. This is a Marantz deck. There are also others available that look identical, different colour maybe. This is only available in the States, but there are other versions available around the world. There's Pile, there's Ion, there's various things, but they all look the same. Now, the build quality of this is a $100 unit. It's adequate, the functions are okay, and they're a good step into cassettes. They can be used and enjoyed, but with the addition of one lead, they can be used to digitalise your cassettes. Now, this is where it starts getting a bit funny about these things. These machines are not particularly high quality. As I said, they're adequate. However, they're actually put together with bits that work quite well. If you get a good one, it's actually not bad. If you get a bad one, well, send it back. But the thing is, you will get reasonable sound off these, and you can use them to record. That other thing I wouldn't use to record. But this you can use to record, and you can get reasonable results. Or if you want to up the build quality, unfortunately the price as well, but there we go, you can go for this. Now, this is from Teac. It is a really nice piece of kit. It's got a CD and it's got a tape. They're about $350 or about £350, or wherever you live. It's going to be around about the same equivalence in money. It is a proper brand. It's built properly. It actually feels like you've bought something worth having. I haven't got one of these. I have got one of these. Again, it's from Teac. It's the cassette mechanisms and things are the same as in the other machine. They are very good. Do not believe all the shouting from the people who are just biased. They are actually very good. Quality is, on the build of the actual machine, nice. The knobs feel right, the doors shut and open properly, the whole thing works properly. It is not cheap and cheerful. The other one was cheap and cheerful, and you get what you pay for in that respect, but these are fine. The record and playback sound quality is hi-fi. The wow flutter is better than specified at around about it's specified at 0.25, but it's actually less than that it runs out at on tests, and this is a test verified by more than one person. Now, chapter 3, this is where it starts to get interesting, and you need to make some decisions. Do you want to go down the real hi-fi route? The machine that I've just talked to you about is hi-fi, but it is not the top grade machines as per what used to happen many, many years ago. They do not make decks today that match the best of the decks from the peak of the format. Who in their right mind would want to pay the equivalent of $12,000 or the price of a budget car, brand new, for a machine to play wobbly old tapes and minor interest new tapes? Because that, adjusted for inflation, is what the best of the best decks cost. A Dragon was £1,000 in 1980, whatever it was, which would equate now to about £10,000. So, it's a lot of money, and that nobody will spend that money now. People say that the other stuff is expensive at $350. When you compare it to an iPhone at £1,000 or $1,000, I'm not sure that a cassette deck at $350 is expensive. But, that's just me. Vintage is the thing, but now you have to decide what interests you have. What sort of money do you want to spend, and where? I hear some shout. Let's have a look at eBay. Now, this is eBay, and you can see here we've got, this was literally done yesterday. And you can see date and time on there. However, I just went onto eBay, put in the words cassette deck, and this is what came up. So you got a £34.99, £139.99, £149, £55, £195, and £109. Now, you can also go to a thrift store, as we don't have those in Europe, well, certainly not in the UK, but we have charity shops, estate sales, garage sales, Facebook market, local paper. They're all good places to look for deals, but beware. Vintage, there is a split, and there are two ways to go. Music, some people like to listen to music and they just use equipment to play it. Other people like to listen to equipment and they use music to do that. This is not the same thing. If you do not want to be disassembling and repairing the cassette decks, then you need to be lucky and to have a large disposable income. If this scares you, and I'll tell you what, it is pretty scary, then maybe you've got to think about it. On the right hand side is circuit diagrams for record and playback section on a small, actually it's the ion cassette deck. And if you don't understand what those things mean, and if you do not know what those bits in the middle are, those are called diodes by the way, then maybe vintage is not for you. Maybe you need to go for new. Or if you do go for vintage, you've got to pay people to be able to fix the stuff for you. Look at the prices though. This is a power transistor. This is the sort of thing you have in an amplifier. You normally have at least four, maybe 8 of those things. And they're $24 for, I think that says it's a pack of 4 on there. But anyway, $24. You could pay megabucks for these pieces. And those are general parts. Trying to get parts for cassette decks is not easy. And this is what you have to be able to learn to do. You need to buy vintage serviced if you don't want to be repairing it yourself. Remember, it is vintage, which means it is likely to go wrong even if you do buy a good one from a good place. It is not what you want to learn to do. You need to buy vintage serviced. Remember, if it is vintage, it means that it's likely to go wrong. If, however, it's not a problem, you can spend a lot of time having a ball, locating spares, buying test equipment, enjoying yourself and the electronics and the mechanics, because there's a lot in a cassette deck that can go wrong. And it's fun repairing it, if that's what you want to do. But you won't have much time to listen to music. Let's have a look at the eBay listing again. $35 or £35 to £195, or approximately $50 to $220. these are good decks. If they work, value for money. Your guess is as good as mine. The only thing is I can fix them. I actually have the equipment from when I used to do it for a living, and if there is a fault, at least I can attempt to repair it. But that's the point. I can attempt to repair it, and I can decide that it's not worth it. Now, my opinion, for what it's worth, my advice is to buy as cheap as you can afford. It is a gamble. If it pays off, it's great, but never buy a deck if you cannot afford to throw away the money. It may not work, and the spares may be unavailable, even to the service trade. There are parts that are not available to anybody. They don't make them anymore, and unless you can find another deck with a bit that works, then you're going to have a problem. Now, the thing about you see on news groups, people say, "Oh yeah, just get a spares deck." What tends to be forgotten is that if you've got a deck and a cog breaks, the chances are that every other deck of that model is going to have a broken cog sooner or later, unless you've done something like hit it with a hammer. If you've just been using it and the cog breaks, then everybody else's decks, the cogs are going to break sooner or later. And if you buy yourself a donor deck, as people call it, yeah, it's probably going to have a broken cog as well, or maybe it won't. But you won't know until you buy it. So, as I said before, beware. You have to be willing to lose the money that you spend if you're going to do this vintage thing as is. If you want to play inside the deck, get simple ones to start with. If you want to start going down the repairing your stuff, it's fine. No problem with that. But it's going to be difficult to get into, and you're going to find that it doesn't work when you finish playing with it, if you're not careful, if you don't know what you're doing. The wires are brittle. They fall off, so you have to take photographs before you take the thing apart. The connectors are going to be corroded, so you need to take them off and put them back on again, but that might crack the boards. It is not the sort of job that you can do if you're used to bashing things with hammers. It's the sort of job that is more akin to watch repair than it is to building a wall. If you're a mechanic or something like that, and you're into cars and you're into the minute thing, probably similar to stripping down a carburettor rather than some of the other parts, it can be fun. I'll leave it at that. Features. What to look out for on cassette decks if you're going to buy one, be it new or second-hand. Right. Auto-reverse decks can be fussy and need TLC. What I mean by that is simple. The heads that are going to be rotated have a habit of not aligning themselves properly, so you have to look after the mechanisms. Or the bits that make the tapes run in either direction can get a bit funny. The belts can get a bit slack, so they need to be looked after. Real brands such as Sony and Technics, Toshiba, Hitachi and all the rest of them, they are much better than no-name brands. Store-owned brands can be a bargain, but they're also total crap, or can be total crap. I'll tell you what I mean by that. There was a store brand in the UK, and they were selling TVs. And this TV was a really good TV, and it was £150, which was about a third cheaper than the TV sold by the manufacturer of that TV. That was for the first 6 months. After that, they changed their supplier. The box looked the same. The TV looked the same on the outside. Inside was a TV that was worth about half of what they were charging for it. It was nothing related to the original TV, but on the outside it looked the same. If you bought one of the first ones, you had a bargain. If you bought one of the other ones, they were total crap, and I wouldn't give them house room. Trouble is, you didn't know till you took the back off. So, with store-owned brands, buyer beware. Now, when you've got yourself a deck, what you have to do, or before you bought the deck, ideally, is have a look at the condition of the heads and the pinch rollers. You can see a nice head there, you can see a nice pinch roller, and you can see inside. This is what it looks like when you look inside where the cassette goes. That's what you want it to look like. It should look clean, and it should look like it hasn't been abused, the head should be smooth, etc., etc. When you've got yourself a deck in front of you and you're looking to see if you want to buy it, check that it plays, make sure it actually runs the tape. Check that it fast forwards and rewinds. Those are the most common problems on cassette decks, is that the fast forward and rewind doesn't work very well. Very often it's a belt, sometimes it's the idler tyres, sometimes it's both. You've got to listen for nasty noises. If it's making nasty noises, there's probably something wrong with it. But there are whirs and clicks that should happen, and you have to try and distinguish between them. So that's why I said on here, grinding and clanking noises are not what you want. Listen to the speakers or the output. Listen for crackling and hum. Hiss is relatively normal, but a loud crackling or a mechanical type grinding hissy sound is not what you want. There are other features such as a 3-head, direct drive, twin capstan, and the list goes on and on. These are good, but they all add up to the complexity of the machine. That means more to enjoy, but also more to go wrong. This is where some of the real cassette fans start going, oh, you've got to have this, you've got to have that. If you're starting off in cassettes and you haven't got lots of money and you don't want to start taking the thing apart, buy yourself a simple machine, because the more complicated machines will go wrong and they are troublesome. Once you've got them sorted, they're great, but they might be giving you a problem. You might end up with a good machine with a slight problem, which sounds worse than a not so good machine that's running perfectly. So, horses for courses. Oh, don't get me on that again. Anyway, in reality, the differences are simple. In reality, the differences are simply fine-tuning and excellence. The fact is that you will not hear the difference between a 0.01% and a 0.02% wow flutter. Other units will have up to 0.3%. That's 0.3, not 0.03% wow flutter when they left the factory in 1978. So maybe it's not so important. You've got to listen and be happy with what you hear. On to cassette types. Type 1, Type 2, Type 3, Type 4. You've seen or heard of some of these. All decks can use Type 1. Most decks can use Type 2, and a few can use Type 3. A few more can use Type 4, but Type 4 are very, very expensive. You're looking at up to £50 a tape for Type 4, because they weren't the most popular tape in the world. They were expensive when they were made, and it was at the end of the time, so there aren't so many knocking around, and people know they can charge more for them. You should make sure you get Type 2 usage, but again, with vintage, you may not have many options. A good deck of any era will sound good with tapes, and you can use new tapes on old decks. Dolby is a good thing. ANRS is also good. That's a JVC sound thing. A deck without noise reduction will hiss, but it's up to you. Beggars cannot be choosers. However, a lot of people choose not to use noise reduction because they like the hiss. Again, if you've got a good deck in front of you and it hasn't got noise reduction, maybe it doesn't need it. If it's cheap enough, buy it, play with it, see how you get on. One of the things is you can always sell a deck that you're not happy with. People forget that. I hope this has given you something to think about when getting into cassettes, and I shall follow this video with the ins and outs of some of the features we have brushed into today. With the hows and the whys, they may be useful. So I hope this has been useful. Please like, share, and please subscribe to my channel for more videos. Subscription is free, and YouTube like it that you have videos and make them easier for others to find. Thanks again, and we'll get back together soon. Cheers.